Next up at the GCSI here is Edward Marchewka, PhD. This is a long introduction that I'm going to condense, okay? So we're going to start with Edward's academia background with Lake Forest Graduate School of Management that you're currently with. Previously, Edward was involved with Western Governors University, Excelsior College, Colorado Technical University, Career Education Corporation, and Elgin Community College. Currently, Edward is the CIO of PryorHealth and the founder of 3LC Solutions, who's done a lot of very famous metrics work around Chicago. Many of us know Edward from the Gift of Hope Organ and Tissue Donor Network, where he was the CIO and the CISO. And then a challenging job, I'm sure, of being the CISO of Chicago Public Schools. Prior to that, Thermo Fisher Scientific and Geeks on Call. And here's Edward.
I have a 3:30 train, so you can get the Cliff Notes version of this presentation here. This is fun. So this is the story of how I not only renewed my cyber insurance, but also how I saved 27%. So thanks for coming. I had a much better intro, but that's me, and there's my LinkedIn profile if you want to read that whole big, giant bio. I really want to get into nuts and bolts of this stuff. Of course, the legal, there. This is all my fault, not my company's. All right. See, got through that part real quick. I actually have a timer on my watch because I need to catch this train. So for the framing, I want to give it just a little bit of background on the insurance market. So the cyber insurance market right now is about a $6 billion market in the U.S. Cyber insurance claims over the last 3 years are up 100%. No surprise. The claim amounts are up over 200%. So more people are filing claims, and they're for bigger and better amounts. The average payout's $345K. Because most of the breaches are happening to small and medium enterprises, which the report that I read was less than $2 billion organizations, which is kind of like a duh factor because most organizations are less than $2 billion, but they're the ones who are getting breached. We only hear about the mega breaches because it's fun and exciting, but even those take years to litigate, and the dollar amounts actually end up becoming small when you look at it per record. The thing with all of this, though, is that more and more places are finding it harder to renew their cyber insurance. And if they are, they're seeing 50%, and breached organizations, those who had ransomware events, are seeing 400% increases in their renewals. So the fact that we actually got to renew and had a decrease was huge. So that's why this is a big deal. So I'm going to give you like what we did a little bit about that. So there's two views that we took on it, and for some reason, all the pictures that I ended up with today involved cats. I don't know why. Thank you, Canva, when I was doing my word searches. And like, oh, yep, cats, that works. So one inside, one outside. So the external view, I'm going to put up there's going to be some things on this next slide. You're going to be like, oh, I can feel the eye rolls already. But there's a reason, okay? So yes, there's a cat looking in. So the first is, yes, I used my security scorecard report, and I know that's like a bad word in this industry, but to be fair, that's one way that the insurers are looking at you. So we took our security scorecard report, which for nonprofits through the ISAC was free for so many licenses, but either way, we got it free for the organization that I was with at the time, and we fixed a lot of the issues. Now, some of them were trivial and barely moved our score, like fix your CSP headers and a couple of really dumb things that like didn't really move the risk posture. But there were other things that were found, like we had a vendor managed solution, and it was in their environment, but it had our domain attached to it. It was mobile.company for our BCDR communications. That server had a critical vulnerability on it. Found out through security scorecard. So we called them up and we're like, hey, you need to fix this because it's making us look bad to our insurers who are doing external scans. So find external scans. So another one was our provider's dashboard. Our current insurance provider did external scans and said, we find this risky. We don't like this. So we fixed that. Because the insurer is telling you, we're not going to renew you if you don't fix this. Duh, go fix it. And it was some obvious things and some easier things that had to be done. And the last was we use CISA scans. So if you're critical infrastructure, you can get scanned by CISA for free. You just got to fill out the application, sign up for it. I'm in the process of doing it for PryorHealth right now because we're healthcare, so critical infrastructure. Therefore, why not? Why not get someone else to do that stuff for you? It gives you that external view, and then you can actually give them not only your websites. So an argument we used to make too about our websites too is, one, they weren't hosted on-prem, and so if you compromised it, I don't care. The other piece was our website was not critical to our business that I was in. Like, you could take it down, and guess what? We'd still be in business. It didn't matter, core business offering thing. It was informational. So, I'm marketing, they'd freak out. Oh my God, the website's down. I'm like, so? and it didn't matter. It was completely disconnected from us. Yeah, it'd be like maybe, if you compromise it and got in and defaced it, maybe, but so what? So the CISA scan those, we scanned our actual environment and all our other ones. And again, they'll do that for free. There's the website if you want to take a picture. Okay. So you can get the Cliff Notes version of this. So then there's the internal view. So I remember 10, 15 years ago filling out cybersecurity insurance forms, and it was like 37 pages about encryption. Not one question about identity, which baffled me. Who remembers those days where it was like, do you encrypt your databases? No. Do you encrypt all your physical servers? No. Why not? Because if you can break into the building, break into the locked room, de-rack the cabinet, and walk out of the 13th floor, you win. And so, but if you compromise the database administrator's password, they're like, we don't care about that. Not one question about identity, all about encryption. So this is what we did. We focused on our internal metrics about identity, encryption, because they still asked about that, but it was more about the endpoint, because then they realized that the endpoint is where the actual data is, and if you don't encrypt the endpoint, then you get all the goodies. It's easier to steal a laptop than it is to steal a server out of a locked room. Surprise. When you have drills making noise, people tend to pay attention. Backups was a huge thing, and then EDR and MDR. Backups because they're asking tons of questions about ransomware. So are your backups XYZ, and are they disconnected, and can you restore them? Okay. Disclaimer, this is an eye chart, and it's meant to be that on purpose. For the whole list, just go to my LinkedIn profile. It's a featured post. But I'm going to talk about some of these. The first is time for admins to be notified of users added to super user groups. So we did this through our MDR provider. All right, so I use Rapid7 for that, for my MDR. It worked really well. It was able to tell us who was doing, getting elevated permissions within our environment. So anytime, even good, it was like, hey, who's doing that? And then the next two, number of events of interest detected by URL requests, and the number of devices not required to utilize URL filter. So we used Umbrella for that one. Are you looking at the devices, things that are calling home in the kill chain, right? Stop that. And then average number of users clicking on phishing tests, employees targeted for training, number of clicks on last phishing campaign, use KnowBefore for that one to get that done. So we're measuring these things internally because these are the types of things that the insurers are asking questions about. The next couple are all about malware and endpoint protection. So I used SentinelOne for EDR on that, and it was absolutely fabulous if you have their service. Just the product alone, the product alone works well, but when you get someone else to actually look at the alerts, it's wonderful, because then you get the alert like, hey, we found this thing and we're looking at it. We've quarantined it in the meantime. And then it's like, oh, that's your own script. Never mind. Whitelist. So, and then the backups. So percent of successful backups, results of periodic restores. So it's good thing. It's one thing to have backups. It's another thing to see if it's actually worthwhile. And not just data, but bare metal restores. How many of you are doing that? Not many people do. Percent of systems without current backups not available on online OS calls, and time to notify when a backup has failed. Usually we all eventually get nearly 100% backups, but how many are first pass resolution? I remember working at a place and our first pass was 85%. We had so much work to do on backups. We actually celebrated when we got to 99.8. I actually sent my boss the Gladiator, "Are you not entertained?" meme. I felt very triumphant then. Especially when we were backing up like nearly a petabyte of data when we were doing full backups. It was fun. Percent of devices not required to use MFA, and percent of remote access. The new insurance questionnaires are all about like 2FA and MFA, and like you already asked me this question, and especially when you go out to bid, like the broker will hit up a whole bunch of organizations. Like, why can't there just be one application? They all ask the same thing. It's frustrating. And then percent of critical data devices with encryption and databases with encryption. So, oh yeah, so the MFA one, that was Duo. I really actually liked it, not only because it was easy to use, we had a great rollout with it, but Duo has the help desk push, which I know has come up many, many times in our the CISO community of how do you verify a user when they call in. There's a help desk push button where the help desk can push a button, and then the user gets a thing, and they have to read the code off. So unless you have a less likelihood of compromise with the Duo push application. Critical devices with encryption, BitLocker, surprise. We were a Windows shop. So these are some of the key critical metrics, but there's a whole list. I got like 140 of them on my LinkedIn profile if you want to get all those freebies and goodies there. But by managing to these, we were able to help head it off. And I grabbed a Sun Tzu quote, and I think it's so appropriate for this type of thing. And it goes, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. And it's so true. So not only did I know what the insurers were looking at, I knew exactly what was going on in my environment as I was going to respond to them. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you'll also suffer defeat. So if you don't know the external view that the insurers are looking at, and you don't do anything about it, you're toast anyways, because you can have the best controls and the best environment, but if it looks like crap from the outside, I had one insurer that they refused to even talk to us because we had an open SIP port. A SIP port. It's for voice. It has to be open. They wouldn't even like have a conversation. So, all right, well, I didn't want to work with them anyways. They probably wouldn't have covered us. You had a breach. Well, we're not covering you. Yeah, one of those things. And then the last piece is if you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. So if you have no idea what's going on, you're totally screwed anyways, which is true. Okay, so at the end result, we put a little bit of money in, yes. But our cyber insurance was not only renewed, but we ended up having a 27% decrease in our premium by addressing those external concerns and by managing our environment internally against some actual cybersecurity metrics, which I gave a sample of today with those, and the particular tools to help manage those, because sometimes people come up here and you're like, you should measure things, and then they don't tell you how to do it. All right, so that was the Cliff Notes version. I ran through that really, really, really fast because, like I said, I want to make this train. What questions do you have? I've got 6 minutes. Yes. Oh, yeah, so the big differences was our internal controls got better, so our different metrics that we were measuring. And then we addressed a couple of those external facing concerns. So our security scorecard score, I think, went from a 78 to a 98 over the year between by just addressing those couple of things. Like, I know we hate the product as overall, but it's how you're being viewed. And a general rule of thumb is like, if you're a B or better, you're okay, especially if you're evaluating vendors. That's for those of us who live and breathe this every day. When you're dealing with an underwriter, man, they want it to be locked up. So there you go. Richard. No, it ended up being the same one. So the one that second bullet point of using their report of did you fix stuff that they found, they ended up renewing us. Through a broker. Yeah, broker went out to bid for us many times, and it was the same company that ended up renewing us. They were even shocked that like the underwriters gave us a discount. The broker was. He was like, holy cow, I haven't seen this. I was just glad we got renewed. It was with respect to the limits that they chose that. Look, we can do our quantitative risk assessment, and you'll end up with more risk than your business is worth, generally, is what happens. And so no one believes you at that point. It's like, we got $50 billion worth of risk, and it's like, we're a $100 million company. It's impossible to have that much risk. And so it was a determination of, like, our most likely event is going to be X amount for a payout. We're going to insure for that. Everything else we'll have to deal with. I mean, if we had an event type of situation, where's the likelihood? Are we going to get hit with a target-sized mega breach, and we're going to end up paying $110 million? No. So I love the question. How much risk reduction did you actually get by doing this versus doing it just to make the insurer happy. There were some things that did not impact, I think, risk overall, like some of the web headers and those various things. Our internal controls, I think, I can tell you that because we actually measured that internally, that brought our risk posture down probably 10% or more. Because it was better alerting, more timely alerting, better accuracy on like the backups. What percentages were we at, and now where are we better now that we focused that on those types of things? So the external stuff honestly was just making the insurers happy. It was the internal stuff where we saw the real risk return, which we measured against, from like a contingent liability perspective. I can do a whole thing on that topic too if you want to chat it with me later. Not today. Huh? It paid for itself. Yeah, absolutely. And we got a ton more visibility into the environment by adding the different tools and responses. The MDR and the EDR is the biggest benefit that we got out of that is that our staff wasn't working on it. It was someone else that we were paying to work on it. So we got, those returns as well, although a soft cost because it was already included in that. All right. Thanks a lot.